Love is one of the most mysterious and contradictory themes in human life. We seek it, hope for it, suffer because of it, and sometimes feel lost without it. From childhood, we are taught that being in a relationship is the path to happiness, that life is incomplete without a soulmate who will fill our inner void, give us confidence, harmony, and peace. But if this is indeed the case, why are so many people unhappy in their relationships? When the illusion dissipates, a choice remains. Either recognize that everything that attracted us to the partner was only a reflection of ourselves or continue to cling to our former fantasies. Most choose the latter. They blame the partner for becoming different, although in reality only their perception has changed. People leave one relationship to find another, more suitable person, but again and again they repeat the same scenario. Until we realize our own projections, love will remain not a union of two personalities, but an attempt to fill an inner void at the expense of another person. And if we do not understand this, we will endlessly seek the ideal partner, who in reality exists only in our imagination. Love often becomes a mirror in which we see not only our partner, but also ourselves. Our expectations, fears, and hidden desires color our perception of another person, forcing us to see in them what we want to see. When we first enter a relationship, we fill our partner with meaning, creating their image in our minds, but this image rarely coincides with reality. Psychological projection is the process by which we transfer our internal conflicts and unrealized needs to our partner. We seek in them the qualities that we ourselves lack, but we forget that another person is not a tool for filling our gaps, but an independent personality. Over time, when fantasies about the partner begin to dissipate, disappointment comes. It no longer seems to us that they are as ideal as before, but instead of admitting our mistake, we begin to blame them for changing. Jung said that a person seeks their missing part in love, but does not understand that it cannot be found outside. Infatuation passes, reality remains. And it is at this moment that a crisis occurs in the relationship. Someone leaves believing that they have not found the right person. Someone stays but ceases to feel love, replacing it with attachment or fear. And someone, without realizing the reasons, repeats this cycle again and again, each time hoping that the new partner will be the one. But what drives this endless search? Why do people, realizing that they are not happy in a relationship, not decide to end it? The answer is simple: fear. Fear of loneliness is one of the main reasons why people stay in destructive relationships. We are afraid to be alone with ourselves, afraid of emptiness, afraid to face our own thoughts without external support. Society has convinced us that loneliness is something abnormal, that being alone means being unsuccessful, unattractive, unnecessary. From childhood, we are taught that happiness comes only in pairs, that everyone should have a soulmate without whom life is incomplete. This type forces us to seek a partner not out of love, but out of fear. We enter into relationships not because we are truly ready to share our lives with someone, but because we are afraid of being alone. But the paradox is that it is precisely this fear that makes us vulnerable. The more we fear loneliness, the more dependent we become on our partner, the more we tolerate even when the relationship has long ceased to bring joy. Justifying toxic connections, we cling to the past, afraid to admit that we are feeling bad. Jung warned that escaping from loneliness only leads to new suffering. Until we learn to feel complete without relationships, any connections will only be temporary salvation, not true intimacy. Only by accepting loneliness as a part of life can we build healthy, conscious relationships in which the partner will be a choice, not a rescue. People are ready for a lot just to avoid being alone. They put up with disrespect, endure emotional coldness, close their eyes to toxic manifestations because the alternative seems to be a frightening void. It seems to us that loneliness is the absence of love. But in reality, loneliness is the absence of connection, even if there is a person next to us. Some remain in relationships not because they feel love, but because they are afraid to be alone with their thoughts. It seems to them that a breakup will only bring pain, but they do not notice that they are already hurting. They experience anxiety, insecurity, a feeling of inner emptiness, but continue to convince themselves that it is better to be in such a relationship than in loneliness. Why do couples who once loved each other turn into strangers? Why do many remain in unhappy unions, afraid to admit that love has long faded? The answer may be unpleasant, but it is simple. We fall in love not with people, but with our own illusions. We believe that our partner is a source of happiness, but in reality, we are merely projecting our unrealized needs. This illusion is so strong that we are ready to cling to it even when reality proves otherwise. Over time, the fear of loneliness turns into dependence. The more we fear losing our partner, the more we are willing to compromise our needs. We stop expressing our opinion, give in even if it goes against our principles just to maintain the relationship. It seems to us that love requires sacrifice, but in reality it is not love but fear. And the more this fear controls us, the more it manifests itself in our actions. We begin to demand constant proof of love from our partner, fear that they will leave, become jealous without reason. Gradually, love turns not into a warm feeling, but into a struggle for control. When a person is afraid of losing someone, they try to keep them by any means. Often this manifests itself in an effort to control the partner, limit their freedom, impose their will, and demand constant attention. At the heart of this behavior lies not love, but fear of loss. People who are afraid of loneliness begin to see in their partner not an independent personality, but a source of their emotional security. They want them to always be around to meet their expectations, not to do anything that could threaten their peace of mind. But the more control, the less real love. True feelings are impossible where there is fear and dependence. Jung said that love based on need and fear inevitably turns into a struggle for power. Instead of respecting each other's freedom, partners begin to compete for control, demanding more and more proof of affection. But can true love exist in such conditions, or is it just another illusion that we want to believe in? Love built on the fear of loss gradually turns into a struggle for control. A person who is afraid of loneliness wants to make sure that the partner is always there, that they will not change, will not leave, will not stop loving. At first, this may manifest itself as care and attention, but over time it develops into jealousy, restrictions, and such control can be subtle and imperceptible. Why do you need to spend so much time with your friend? Or I don't think this person is right for you. Or it can be open and harsh with prohibitions and manipulations. In both cases, the root of the problem is the same: fear of loss. The person cannot imagine their life without a partner, so they try to do everything to keep them. But the paradox is that the more we try to keep someone, the more they strive for freedom. Love does not tolerate pressure, and the more a person feels constrained, the more they distance themselves. This is not because they do not love, but because any connection becomes suffocating. Jung warned that love based on control inevitably destroys itself. We want to make our partner our own, forgetting that they have their own personality, their own desires and boundaries. We are afraid of losing love, but it is fear that makes it impossible. True love is possible only where there is freedom, when a person stays close not because they are forced to, but because they sincerely want to. But society rarely tells us about this. It teaches us something different. Traditional attitudes about love and their destruction. From childhood, we are taught that love should be sacrificial, that if you love, you must renounce yourself for the sake of another, that true love requires complete devotion, dissolution in the partner, absolute fidelity, and merging. Films, books, fairy tales are all permeated with the idea that love is something indestructible, that it should last forever, that being alone means being unhappy. We are told that if you have met your person, they will become the meaning of life, and if they leave, it means something is wrong with you. But what if this is not true? What if many of these attitudes do not make us happier, but only less free? What if instead of love, we learn dependence, fear, and suppression of our true desires? Jung said that the most destructive beliefs are those that we never question. Carl Jung warned that searching for the ideal partner is a trap because deep down, we are looking not for a person, but for the part of ourselves that we have not been able to accept. When this illusion collapses, disappointment, pain, and a sense of emptiness arise. So what should we do? Renounce love? No. We only need to understand that its meaning is completely different from what we are used to thinking. Society convinces us that true love is when you find someone who perfectly complements you. Perhaps it is time to look at love differently, not as a sacrifice, not as an obligation, not as a means of salvation, but as a union of two free and whole people. We have grown up with the belief that love is self-sacrifice, that for the sake of a relationship, you need to forget about yourself, your needs, and personal boundaries. We have been told that if a person truly loves, they should be ready for anything for the sake of their partner, to endure, wait, forgive any mistakes. This idea is romanticized in culture, but in real life it turns into the basis for painful and dependent relationships. When people believe that love should last forever, they are willing to put up with dissatisfaction just to maintain the illusion of a correct union. They remain in relationships that do not bring happiness because they are afraid that a breakup will mean their personal failure. They perceive loneliness as a defeat, not understanding that it can be a necessary stage for internal growth. Society creates fear of breaking up, imposing the idea that breaking up means failure. But what if, on the contrary, failure is in staying in something that no longer works? After all, love is not measured by time. It is measured by the quality of connection. True relationships should give a feeling of freedom, not a sense of duty. Love is not chains, not control, not obligation. It is not the search for a person who will fill the shortcomings, but a union of two whole individuals who choose to be together, not out of fear, but out of sincere desire. Carl Jung said that true love begins where projection ends, where we see the partner as they are, not as we want to see them. When expectations, fears, and illusions disappear, a simple truth remains. Love is not the search for salvation, but the desire to share what you already have. If everything we have been taught about love does not work, then a legitimate question arises. How then to build healthy, conscious relationships? True love begins with internal work. Until a person learns to feel whole and independent, any relationships will be built on fear and the need to fill a void. Love should not become a means of escaping from oneself. It should be a conscious choice of two mature people. Jung argued that the path to healthy relationships lies through the process of individuation, the awareness and acceptance of all aspects of one's personality, including those that we are used to rejecting. Only a person who has understood and accepted themselves can enter into relationships not out of need, but out of a desire to be with another equally whole person. This requires abandoning all beliefs, realizing one's true needs, and accepting responsibility for one's happiness. You need to stop waiting for your partner to make you happy and learn to find joy within yourself. True love is not a need for another, but an ability to share yourself without losing your individuality. It is not based on the fear of loss, but on freedom of choice. And it is from this awareness that the path to relationships that will not constrain, but will help everyone become the best version of themselves begins. True love does not arise from the fear of loneliness or the desire to fill an inner void. It is born where two people feel complete and are not looking for salvation in each other. Only when we stop seeing our partner as an instrument for satisfying our needs do relationships become free and healthy. Many people enter into relationships with the expectation that another person will make them happy, but this is one of the biggest illusions. No one is capable of giving us internal wholeness if we ourselves have not found it. And until this lesson is learned, any relationships will be built on dependence and not on conscious choice. Love based on maturity assumes that each partner already has within them everything necessary for happiness. Then relationships become a place where you can grow, not a place where you hide your fears and complexes. But to reach such a level, you must first go through the path to self-knowledge. It is important to understand what qualities we project onto our partner and why we do it. This means ceasing to look for the ideal partner and instead engaging in self-development. After all, the more a person accepts themselves, the less they need to cling to someone else. This idea seems romantic, but in reality it creates many problems. We seek compensation for our shortcomings rather than a union of two self-sufficient individuals. When we fall in love, it seems to us that our partner possesses qualities that we ourselves lack: confidence, stability, strength, kindness, or attention. However, this feeling often turns out to be an illusion. Carl Jung said that people tend to seek externally what they have not developed internally. Carl Jung called this process individuation, a deep transformation of personality that leads to genuine wholeness. Only after completing this path does a person become ready for relationships in which there is independence and awareness. Not fear of loss, but freedom of choice. Jung believed that most problems in love arise because people are not aware of their inner shadow, those aspects of personality that they reject or hide. These unconscious parts of themselves are then projected onto the partner, creating the illusion that it is precisely them who is capable of filling their lack. When two people love without fear and enjoy the fact that their connection is built on freedom and not on fear, individuation is a process in which a person learns to see and accept all aspects of their personality, including their weaknesses, fears, and desires. This is the path to true maturity, which makes healthy relationships possible. Instead of seeking salvation in another person, a person begins to work on themselves. This process requires honesty with oneself, abandonment of illusions, and the habit of blaming others for one's misfortunes. It teaches us to see reality without filters, to accept the partner as they are and not as we want to see them. True love is possible only when two people meet not as halves but as whole personalities. Only then do relationships become not salvation, but a conscious choice based on mutual respect and freedom. Jung asserted that a person must first know themselves before attempting to build relationships with someone else. Most people avoid this internal work because it is much easier to seek happiness externally than to face one's own shadows. But until a person accepts all aspects of their personality, both light and dark, they will project their internal conflicts onto the partner. Individuation is the process of abandoning illusions and seeking genuine wholeness. This does not mean that a person becomes self-sufficient in the sense of loneliness, but it does mean that they cease to depend on others in order to feel complete. Such a person is capable of loving without fear, without the need to control, without the desire to fill an inner void at the expense of the partner. People who go through this path no longer enter into relationships out of fear of loneliness. They do not seek a savior, do not demand the impossible from another, do not adapt to someone else's expectations. Instead, they realize that relationships are a space for growth, not a source of their own value. When a person accepts themselves completely, they stop being afraid to be themselves in relationships. They do not play roles, do not suppress their desires, do not try to be convenient. They choose a partner consciously understanding that love is not possession, not dependence, but a free union of two whole people. Such an approach requires abandoning old attitudes, working with internal fears, and rethinking one's views on love. But without this awareness, it is impossible to build healthy, stable relationships. Then the main question arises, what steps will help to translate these ideas into life? To build conscious relationships, you need to move from automatic reactions and old patterns to conscious choice and responsibility for your emotional maturity. This does not happen in one day. It is a process that requires time and deep internal analysis. The first step is to become aware of your projections. You need to ask yourself the honest question, what qualities am I looking for in a partner because I lack them in myself? What fears force me to enter into relationships? If these questions cause discomfort, then the truth is hidden in them. The second step is to develop internal wholeness. Instead of seeking solace in a partner, look inward. What unresolved issues am I trying to close with relationships? We project our dreams, hopes, and unrealized aspects of personality onto our partner, creating an ideal image of them in our minds. At the beginning of a relationship, this projection seems real, but over time, fantasy inevitably collides with truth. It turns out that the person is not as we imagine them. Their flaws become noticeable, and their best qualities no longer seem special. We begin to feel disappointment, misunderstanding, and even irritation. When a person goes through this path, their idea of love changes radically. They are no longer afraid of loneliness because they understand that true love does not restrict, but gives freedom. Now the question remains, how to apply these principles in practice to create truly strong, mature relationships? Building conscious relationships means not just loving, but understanding why we love and what our true motives are. This is a process in which we become aware of our emotions, analyze our needs, and act not based on fear, but based on awareness of ourselves and our partner. One of the main strategies of conscious relationships is to abandon the search for what we have not developed in ourselves and our partner. Instead of waiting for another person to make us happy, we need to learn to find happiness within ourselves. When a person becomes self-sufficient, they enter into relationships not out of need, but out of a desire to share what they already have. It is important to understand that relationships should not fill a void. They should be a union of two whole people who respect each other's boundaries and are ready to grow together. Love is not a mechanism for salvation from loneliness, not an attempt to avoid internal dissatisfaction, but a conscious choice to be with someone who complements but does not replace you. The next key step is the development of emotional maturity. This means that a person stops waiting for constant confirmation of their value from the partner, stops clinging to the illusion of stability, and accepts the fact that relationships will always change. Love is not a frozen form, but a living process requiring flexibility, trust, and awareness. Conscious relationships exclude manipulation, dependence, and codependency. Partners do not restrict each other, but help each other to unlock potential and grow. This is possible only if both people are in relationships, not because they are afraid to be alone, but because they truly want to be together. Carl Jung said that relationships become strong when they are based on freedom and not on fear. When a person stops seeing their partner as an object of possession and begins to perceive them as an equal, true intimacy appears, and this leads us to an important rethinking of love, to a new concept in which there is no fear of loss and dependence. We are used to thinking that love should be eternal, that it requires sacrifice, that a true partner is someone who fills our gaps. But what if all this is just outdated ideas that prevent us from being happy? True love is not attachment, not fear of being alone, not a need for another person. It is the freedom of choice to be close despite the possibility of leaving. When two people stay together, not because they are afraid of loss, but because every day they consciously choose each other, only then does true intimacy appear. Love without fear is love in which there is no place for manipulation and control. These are relationships in which each person remains themselves and feels respect for their desires, boundaries, and individuality. It is a union that is built not on anxiety and the need to confirm one's value, but on a sincere desire to be together. When fear disappears, dependence also disappears. A person is no longer afraid that the partner will leave because they know that true love is not held on fear but is built on freedom. But to reach this state, you must first learn to love yourself without the need to seek confirmation of your value in another person. And it is this that opens the door to the strongest and most harmonious relationships. True love is not attachment, not sacrifice, and not constant fear of losing a partner. It is a mature and conscious feeling in which there is no place for panic, control, and dependence. We are used to thinking that love should provide security, but in reality, love begins where fear disappears. When a person is free from internal anxieties, they stop demanding the impossible from the partner. At this moment, a breakdown occurs. Either we accept the person as they are, or we continue to cling to the illusion, ignoring reality. Many choose the second path, hoping that the partner will once again become the person they imagine. They try to change them, fix them, adapt them to their ideal, but the more they try, the more they destroy their relationship. This explains why so many people remain in unhappy unions. They do not expect constant proof of love, are not afraid of separation, do not cling to the illusion of eternal relationships. They understand that love is not something that can be forced or held, but something that lives in the space of trust, freedom, and mutual respect. Society tells us that stronger relationships are those where two people become one, but Jung argued the opposite. Harmonious relationships are possible only when both people remain independent and independent. Love does not require dissolution in another person. On the contrary, it respects individuality and gives each partner the opportunity to be themselves. When the fear of losing someone disappears, so does the need for control. A person stops seeing their partner as their own property, stops waiting for them to compensate for their own unresolved problems. They simply accept them as they are. Love without dependence is love in which there is no place for manipulation. Here, no one is forced to change to meet expectations. No one lives in fear that the partner will leave. On the contrary, it is the awareness that each person is free that makes love deeper and stronger. Only in such relationships is genuine growth possible. Instead of filling the void in each other, partners help each other to become better. Instead of restricting, they inspire. Instead of demanding, they give. This is true love, the one that makes a person stronger and not weaker. But to get to this, you must first look inside yourself. You need to learn to be alone without experiencing anxiety. You need to realize that love does not make a person whole. It only enhances what is already there. If there is emptiness inside, it will not disappear even in the strongest relationships. Carl Jung said that the path to true love begins with individuation. When a person stops projecting their shadows and desires onto the partner, they finally begin to see them as they are. And only then does genuine intimacy arise, without fears, without illusions, without attempts to hold or change another. True love is not the search for salvation, not the fear of being alone, not the desire to fill an inner void. It is the conscious union of two people who choose each other every day, but do not hold on to each other out of fear. Love without dependence is love in which there is no pretense, no need to play roles, no fear of being rejected. This is love that is built on respect, freedom, and the desire to walk through life together and not hold on to each other out of fear of loneliness. If your relationships are built on anxiety, fear of loss, jealousy, or the need for constant confirmation of love, this is not love but dependence. True love begins when a person realizes their value, even if they are alone. Jung taught us that the path to harmonious relationships lies through self-knowledge. Only by understanding oneself can one build healthy relationships in which love does not become a prison, but becomes an opportunity for growth. Now the choice is yours. Will you continue to seek salvation in others? Or will you start working on yourself to one day build truly mature, free relationships? True love does not come from outside, it begins inside. They do not love the real person, they love the image they have created. They are not ready to admit that this image was only a reflection of their own needs. But what happens when this projection completely disappears? We begin to see the partner as they truly are and realize that they are not capable of filling our inner void. When we fall in love, we not only experience feelings for another person, but we also endow them with meanings that come from the depths of our psyche. Jung called this psychological projection. We see in our partner a reflection of our shadow sides, what we hide from ourselves, what we fear, or what we lack. This is precisely why love can sometimes be so painful. It exposes not only our desires but also our fears. Imagine a woman who has always felt insecure and weak. She meets a man who seems strong and decisive to her. It will seem to her that he gives her the security she has been seeking all her life, but in reality he simply reflects her own desire for inner strength. Over time, she will begin to notice that his decisiveness becomes pressure for her, his confidence becomes control, and his strength becomes coldness. It's not that he has changed, it's that her projection is collapsing.